You know that feeling, right? You walk away from a tough conversation, and then hours later, you replay it in your head, thinking of all the perfect things you should have said? Well, what if you could actually train for those moments, like an athlete prepping for a big game? Let's get into this story of one person's wild experiment to do exactly that.
So the story kicks off with this wild line. Our author is sitting in a coffee shop in Manhattan, but he's not there for the coffee. Nope, he's there on a mission to deliberately make everyone in that room uncomfortable. I mean, it's a totally fair question, isn't it? Why on earth would you put yourself through that, especially on your time off? Well, it turns out he was tackling a problem that a lot of us can probably relate to. He felt like he was missing the skill to be assertive, especially when things got tense. And what he realized was, everyone talks about EQ, our emotional quotient, but he felt there was this other, equally crucial skill that just doesn't get the same attention. So he gave it a name, AQ, the assertiveness quotient. Okay, so what's the actual difference here? EQ, we know it, right? It's all about empathy, listening, understanding other people. But AQ, that's kind of the other side of the coin. It's having the guts to say the hard stuff, to say no, or to push for your idea even if you know it's going to create a little bit of friction. And this is super important. Being assertive is not the same as being aggressive or being a jerk. It's about finding that sweet spot, that healthy middle ground, where you're not a pushover, but you're also not a bully. It's a genuine skill. Okay, I love this grid. It really breaks things down. The author maps out 4 personality types. So if you've got low EQ and low AQ, you're what he calls a grumbler. High EQ, but a low AQ. That's the people pleaser. Super nice, but runs away from any conflict. Now flip that script, low EQ, high AQ, and you've got the asshole who has no problem speaking up but tramples over everyone. The goal, the place you want to be, is that top right quadrant, the respected leader who has high EQ and high AQ. And when he looked at himself honestly, he knew exactly where he fit. He was a classic people pleaser. He was great at the EQ stuff, but the second a conversation got confrontational, his mind would just go blank, he'd get flustered, and he knew what was holding him back professionally and personally.
So what's a guy to do? Well, he decided he couldn't just sit around and wait for these awkward moments to pop up. He needed to create his own training ground. So he designed this intense, personal assertiveness boot camp.
His whole boot camp was built around this idea from performance psychology called deliberate practice. So think about a tennis pro trying to improve their backhand. They don't just play more matches. They get a ball machine and practice that one specific shot over and over and over again.
But that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's not like you can just go on Amazon and order a ball machine for negotiating a raise or giving tough feedback. He was going to have to build one from scratch.
And this was his 4-part master plan. First, the core of it. 50 very specific, very uncomfortable conversations he had to have. Second, the commitment. He made this grand gesture of flying to New York City for a week just to get out of his comfort zone. Third, the structure. He planned every single day, minute by minute, so there was no room to back out. And fourth, the secret. He didn't tell a soul what he was doing. Why? Because sometimes talking about your goals gives you a false sense of accomplishment and just drains the energy you need to actually do the hard work. All right, so now we get to the boot camp itself. This is where things get really interesting and really, really awkward.
You're not going to believe his daily warm-up. Every morning, he'd walk into a random coffee shop, order something, and then just lie down, right there, on the floor, for 20 seconds. No explanation. Can you even imagine the looks he got? It was his way of just diving headfirst into social anxiety to build up his courage for the day.
So, what did these conversations actually look like? Well, one of them was to walk up to a complete stranger and ask, "Excuse me, can I have a sip of your latte?" The point, of course, wasn't to get free coffee. It was to practice making a weird, uncomfortable request and just learning to sit with that awkwardness. And for his negotiation practice, this one was brutal. He'd go to these street markets and offer artists and craftspeople just a quarter of their asking price for their handmade goods. He said this one was incredibly difficult because he wasn't just haggling, he felt like he was telling someone to their face that their art wasn't worth much. It was designed to be maximum level uncomfortable. In just 1 week, he did it. He completed all 50 of these awkward, cringe-worthy exercises. By his own math, that was like cramming 25 years of real-world practice into 7 incredibly long days.
So, the big question is, did it actually work? After all that self-inflicted misery, did this boot camp actually change him for the better? Well, yes, it worked in 3 really specific ways. First, he got way better at recognizing the signs of his own anxiety. The tight chest, the racing mind, so he could manage it. Second, he realized that his worst fears were usually overblown. Most people were actually pretty nice, even when he was being a total weirdo. And third, his confidence soared. I mean, after you've asked a stranger for a sip of their coffee, giving a coworker some direct feedback feels like a piece of cake.
So it seems like a total Hollywood ending, right? He did the crazy training montage and boom, problem solved. But that's not quite how it went down. Reality had a bit of a plot twist waiting for him.
Pretty soon after he got back home, he found himself in a meeting where a coworker just lost it and started yelling at him. This was it. This was the final exam he'd been training for. But under real pressure, he froze. He found himself being too agreeable, backing down. He totally failed the test and had to circle back later to clean up the mess. And that failure, that moment of folding under pressure, actually led him to the most important lesson of the entire experiment. It wasn't about finding a quick fix. It was about truly understanding what it takes to build a new skill. And he found his answer in the work of the very psychologist who inspired the whole boot camp in the first place. The expert on experts says it right here. Mastery isn't about a single week of intense effort. It's about years and years of practice. There just are no shortcuts. So here's the real takeaway. The boot camp didn't turn him into a master of assertiveness overnight. That was never going to happen. But what it did do was prove, without a doubt, that assertiveness isn't some fixed trait you're born with. It's a skill. And because it's a skill, it is profoundly malleable. You absolutely can get better at it. In the end, what he learned is that there are no life hacks on the road to getting truly good at something. It just takes consistent practice. And that kind of leaves us with a question to ponder, doesn't it? If there's a skill you want to build in your own life, what does your ball machine look like?